Hi, I'm Mike Watson from Ignite Management. I'm here with a good client and friend, Tim Davis, the CEO of the Davis Automotive Group based in Lethbridge, Alberta. Tim, we worked together over a couple of years. Tell us a little bit about Davis Auto.
Davis Auto Group is a third generation group of car dealerships. We have 11 car dealerships, franchise automotive stores in Alberta. And we're also play pretty heavy in the collision industry with some collision shops in British Columbia and in Alberta as well.
Oh, very, very cool. So this is Gen 3, and I always thought it was a Gen 2 business. I thought your dad, John, was the founder, but it was actually your granddad. So tell
Yeah,
us a little bit about when he started and what his transition was to your dad.
yeah, it's funny because we actually do call my dad John. We call him the founder because in the mid 70s, my dad moved home from Medicine Hat, Alberta, to work at Schuylkill Motors with his dad. His dad had a partner in a General Motors franchise dealership called Schuylkill Motors in a small town in southern Alberta, and when he moved home to work for him, he learned the business from those early 70s or mid 70s into the 80s. And the reason that we
So just
referred,
hang on. So your dad was pushing the broom, eh?
yeah,
Like
no,
he
he
really
wasn't
learned it
pushing the
from the
broom.
ground up.
No, he was learning the business for sure, but he was learning on the fly. He had been in
Yeah.
the feed business before, and my grandpa was a car dealer.
Okay.
And then the reason we call my dad the founder is because my grandfather passed away in 1987, and then in 1989 we had an opportunity. My dad had an opportunity to buy a bigger store in Lethbridge, Alberta, which was a bigger center and a key point location for General Motors, and that was really the spur, the start of our growth.
Right. And so your dad took this from the Schuylkill and then he has Lethbridge and then how many stores were there by the time he handed over to you guys, to the brothers?
Um, I think we have added 3 or 4 stores since my dad. My dad's with guys like that, like my dad, who are in the business. It's in their blood. So it's hard to even draw a line when he actually retired or called himself retired. But I
Yeah.
would say 3 or 4 stores since my dad sort
So
of
he had it up to 7 or 8 stores, and then he did the transition to you and your two brothers. We hear so many stories, Tim, about the challenge of succession, and you've already alluded to it, where the founder stays on forever.
yeah.
The boys who start building their careers, you're going to be here forever, Dad. Like, at what point does this happen? What was it like as your dad was transitioning this piece over to you guys?
Well, I think it was awesome actually because he's our dad, but he's also our mentor. And even we worked at other dealerships, my brothers and I, and so even while we worked for other people, we would phone him and say, "Hey, they do this at this dealership," and that's kind of weird, and we would bounce things off of him all the time. So as he was transitioning out, he was still, even though visibly, or the perception of anybody who worked at the stores, or maybe even our customers, was that he was starting to transition out of the dealerships, he was still heavily involved behind the scenes. So we bounce everything off him still to this day. I mean, he's been retired, pretty much fully retired, for I don't know, 7 or 8 years now, and I talk to him every day about business things, decisions, and what would you do in this situation, or have you ever run into this before, that type of thing. So yeah, still to this day, even though he's retired, I would still say he's involved.
Tim, I got to probe that one a little bit because we do see organizations that have done this succession, but we don't see a lot of them that have done it successfully. And this construct of dad has been, or mom has been, a mentor and continues to be active in the business. To what would you attribute this ongoing connection where your dad is still such a mentor in the business? Play this back, and this is a bit of advice for people that might be watching this. Whether you're the founder or the son or daughter that's coming up, What allowed this to take place, this connection?
Well, I think just respect for what he's done. I think if you asked him, he would tell you that we all think we're smarter than him, and I'm sure every kid that's out there that's working with their mom or dad, they can't wait to push them aside to some degree and take the
Mhm.
reins themselves. And that's youthful enthusiasm, and that's awesome. But at some point, you have to realize that the experience of he's been in the business for whatever 50 over 50 years, and that's, you can't learn that in 4 years of university. And we come out of university and we're ready to go, and you think you know it all, but you don't. And when you really look at the span of his career and what he's done and the relationships that he's built, and and which I attribute a lot of our expansion to the relationships. Yeah, I'd be foolish not to listen to him and take his advice.
Tim, there's a word that you played out there right at the very beginning, and the word was respect. And the youthful enthusiasm, we can't help ourselves as we're young. We want to get into it. We want to drive forward. And oftentimes, I'll look back on my history. I thought I knew better. What the hell do they know?
Yeah.
Yet what you're saying is you got to step back and respect the knowledge that they've built over years and years and years. And there's been something on the other side. Your dad has also enabled you and your siblings to flourish. What has he done that has really allowed you guys to grow?
Well, he fully empowered us,
Mhm.
right from the get-go. And even when we were working in the same facility and I was working in the fixed operation, you know, I I was fully empowered to make all the decisions. But I can tell you, there were many times I was up in his office saying, "Why did you handle this like this?" Or, "I think you should have maybe handled this like this," or, "Let's talk about this." And even then, and also things that I was bouncing off him at that time. And there's lots of times where we definitely didn't agree with each other. But the one thing about my dad is, what even if we disagreed on how we handled it, he allowed our decision to be the decision.
You backed your decision, hey?
And so if it was a mistake, it was on us. And if it was a success, it was on us.
Tim, what you're talking about is so powerful, and it works in the founder successor model, but it works in leadership across the board. Hey, if you empower people to make the decision, they own it, good or bad.
You bet.
You step in and want to make the decision better for them all the time. They never own it. And what's fascinating is that has to be much more difficult for a parent.
Oh, yeah, there's no question about it. I'm seeing it right now in our organization, in our collision centers. We've been talking about developing the leaders in our collision centers. And one of the biggest, maybe mistakes, I don't know if it's a mistake yet, or that we've made, or one of the things that one of the oversights, I guess, that we've had to this point is that we haven't given the leaders in those locations enough empowerment. We're trying to be disruptors in that industry.
Mhm.
And so we've really taken sort of a centralized approach to how we implement process and structure in those collision centers and how we do things. And that's okay to some degree. We have to be there to guide and to make sure that the processes and the structure we want are put in place and we execute.
Yeah.
But at some point, it has to be owned by the location manager, or they're just going to think that we're driving things down their throat,
Yeah.
and they won't have the respect for the structure or the process if they don't get to collaborate in it to some
Tim,
degree.
I will remember as long as I live the session we did with your managers in Fix Auto. And it was all about allowing them ownership of strategy and how powerful that was. And you've shared with me since the impacts as they've taken on that ownership, like unbelievable. So this construct of, number one, have respect for those that have been there before. As you're looking to the founder, you want to have smooth succession, respect what they've built. For the founder, you want to have the kids or your leaders take it and run with it, empower them, give them that empowerment.
Yep. Let them
Very,
make some
very,
mistakes.
yeah, and let them own their mistakes. we've got an expression we use. Well, you've heard me use it, Tim. Wisdom doesn't grow on our good days. And you learn through the mistakes that you make. Let's change gears a little bit here. You folks have been on it. Your business had become really complex. And as always happens in enterprise that's growing rapidly, the complexity gets to a point where you got to step back and say, whoa, where are we going here? And you guys came together as a family and you created a legacy statement to drive the family even before you got into the business. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess leading up to the point where we met you, we realized that, you know, at some point we continued to grow, and we always say that we grew organically. Like, we weren't out there looking for opportunities and knocking on doors trying to buy car dealerships. Most of the opportunities that came to us came through relationship, and my dad was a deal maker. He could figure out a way to put anything together, and we always say the next thing you know, we're not a mom and pop organization anymore. And we had, you know, three brothers in the business and my dad in the business. And, you know, you start to see, due to the complexity that you speak about, roles start to cross over and things begin to cloud up a little bit. And so we realized we needed some structure, and hence the relationship that was formed with you and your team. But I remember you saying in those first meetings that we needed something to guide us. And, you know, I'm sure everybody thinks they're different and that they do things differently, but we really felt like our culture and the way we approached the business and the customer and in particular the employees was different or special. And a lot of that, in our opinion, was legacy. That came from my grandpa. And, you know, my grandpa was a really neat person. He didn't care if he made $1 as long as all the people that worked for him were happy and his customers were happy. That was the most important thing to him. And so, and the other thing about my grandpa, he was a community guy, and that got passed on to my dad and now on to my brothers and myself. And those are the things that we had to capture to make sure that when we went out to our organization and said, you know, this is what guides us. This is what's important to us. And this is how we got to where we are today. And so we built the legacy statement. And as you know, it talks about community, and it talks about being humble, and it talks about respecting the employee and providing a really great customer experience. And all of those things are the legacies that my grandpa and my dad have left behind.
Tim, I love the work you guys did on legacy, and now as you tell the story, reflecting on it, it's not just the legacy of Tim, Mike, and Luke Davis, the brothers in the business today, but rather starting with the legacy your grandfather left, passed on to your father. And what's really fascinating is how you then came together and said, what will be our legacy? It's not leave it to chance. It's what will be our legacy. And it will be community. It will be relationships. It will be focus on the employee. And that's what guides us. That's what we must leave behind as a legacy for our children. Mm-hmm. Fascinating. So you built this as the family, and then it's time to transition it into the business. And through this, you also established role clarity. With the overlap was there, and you became the CEO of the group. And your job then was to bring this into vision and strategy for the company. Really quickly, just a quick snippet on how that came to pass.
Well, we met Ignite Management. So that's
hey, listen, I'd love to take credit for it. I would love to, honest to God. We got a process that works, but it's always been about the folks we get to deal with. So we go in there, we work with you, but what happened then?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that, you know, we've said it many times, and I know I've said it to you before, and this might sound like an endorsement for Ignite Management, but the process that you walked us through is so logical. You know, starting with the legacy and then building a vision that's based on our values, on our core values, and then talking about a mission statement. And these things aren't new, right? Like most large companies and small companies have visions and mission statements, but we had those things, but and I feel like we put some effort into them in the past, but I don't think they were clear enough, and I don't think they resonated well enough. And and the other thing about them, they weren't based on our legacy statement.
Yeah.
So we started out with the vision statement, and I think we nailed that. And then, one of the most memorable meetings I remember having with you guys is working on our mission statement, and trying to make a mission statement that was 8 words or less. And we did that, and I couldn't believe that we spent hours on putting 8 words together. But at the end of the session, everybody in the room said, well, that's our mission. I mean, that's what we're here for. That's our mission.
I love that you've called that out. Mission statements, oftentimes they're overused and they're underutilized, if I could put it that way. And what you guys did was a clear statement of what we do.
Yeah.
Here's our mission. This is what we do.
Yeah. And then, I guess from there, our exec team was, I'm blessed to have an awesome group of people surrounding me, and they're very smart and very creative.
Oh, hey, hang on, Tim. Just to be clear, you've done a great job of hiring smarter than yourself.
Yeah, that's not hard.
I'm kidding, but you for sure you have a great team, eh?
We do, and yeah, and then we had to start to work on what I call our roadmap or our strategic plan. And so yeah, that was sort of the steps that we went through. And that was pretty simple, because the strategic plan, as you know, that wasn't a 1-hour session. There's a lot of effort that goes into that, because the foresight that you need to guide you when we have in our organization, we're very geographically diverse. We have, between car dealerships and collision centers, we have over 20 or 25 locations, and most of them are in different cities. Yeah. And so trying to get the vision and the mission and then stretch that strategy over all of those locations is difficult. So it had to be really clear.
You guys did something that few do. And when I look at what got you where you are today, what's so cool about it, you created your vision, you created your mission, you created your corporate strategy, but then you went a step further and you brought it to every store. You brought it to Fix Auto, and you brought it to each one of your dealerships, creating ownership in each of the dealerships. So I'm going to play back some of what we've heard here, because we're getting to an end of this segment, and there are some phenomenal takeaways. Let me play those back to you. Takeaway number 1: if you are in a family enterprise and you're looking at the founder, mom or dad, respect them. Respect them for what they've learned, because the wisdom that they have will go and carry you for years. And really, they don't ask for much more than the respect. If you're the founder looking at succession, empower your kids. Let them make the mistakes. You can't protect them forever, and someday you won't be around. So give them that opportunity to fail. Let them learn from that. I heard from you, Tim, as this succession is taking place, creating role clarity amongst the family members is absolutely critical. Dissonance will take place, and identifying and having role clarity is absolutely essential, especially in family enterprises relating to the siblings in the business. And I would say founder to the kids as they're coming up as well. And then, so that's some of the family pieces. And then what did you need to get right? How will we be remembered as a family? The legacy, what is our contribution, and how will we be remembered? Create the legacy. And then I heard you talk about taking that legacy and having the company have a vision, which is in service to the legacy that the people in the company own. That vision informs strategy, the mission, what we do, which informs what do we have to get right. That's your strategy. The final step being, don't think it stops there. Take it to the rest of your organization. Give everyone that chance of ownership. really a phenomenal story. The Davis Auto story out of Lethbridge, Alberta, the Fix Auto story. It is truly a great success story and family enterprise. Tim, closing comments before we wrap this up.
Oh, you everything you said is exactly the way we went through it. And I couldn't have been more happy with the approach. Like I said earlier, the approach was logical. It was the sequence made sense to everybody, and it really kept everybody engaged. And we landed with a product that we're really proud of. Like, you can really sense the pride in our strategic plan, and it's first and foremost, like, we have it on our walls in our office, and it truly is there to guide us.
It's the guiding force. But Tim, one final note for the people that might be watching this or that are watching this. It sounds so easy. Respect, empowerment, role clarity, legacy, vision, values, strategy. On a 1 to 5 scale, 1 is this is super easy, dive in, you'll get her done, no problem. On a 5 scale, understand you're rolling over some rocks and this is going to be heavy lifting and hard work. Where would it stand? Where would it sit?
Well, there's definitely hard conversations. I would tell you that a lot of the family stuff is 5.
Yeah.
But once you sort through that stuff and you've lined out your vision and your mission statement after the legacy, the structure part of it, the strategic planning part of it is, I don't want to say it's a 1 because I don't want to make it sound like it's so easy.
What I'm hearing, Tim, and let the listener hear this, the toughest part, the heavy lifting, is when you have the tougher conversations of what do we stand for? What is the role clarity? Again, Davis Auto Group out of Lethbridge, Alberta. Amazing, amazing success story. Tim, thanks for joining me this afternoon.
Thanks, Mike.